And we interrupt sports right now for this breaking news: a police pursuit of 2 stolen vehicles tonight. Desmond Shaw live in SkyCal with the details for us. Desmond?
Well, Susie, it had been 2 vehicles. We're now down to 1. Very peculiar situation. I believe that they were both allegedly stolen vehicles here. It was a white Kia, and I believe this is a black Kia. I believe a Kia Soul. Of course, there's been so much publicized about those Kias in recent years, just how easy they can be to steal. But get this. Now, the white Kia got abandoned, but those suspects hopped in this vehicle. So they clearly know each other. They're thinking about giving it to CHP now that we're on the northbound 101. We just came out of downtown LA. This all began in South LA. Let's see, if we can kind of get a look inside here, if this is the notorious Kia boys or what. It's definitely worth asking, because we were talking about not 1 but 2 allegedly stolen Kias. And, if that's the case, a lot of times these end up being very, very young people. A lot of times they're not even old enough to drive. So, still just conjecture at this point. We'll see. But we are northbound on the Hollywood Freeway here. We've had, we're getting kind of high here, up to about 90 miles an hour. So kind of dangerous speeds. From 2 vehicles down to 1, a stolen vehicle, yet another one here, as we blast our way towards Hollywood northbound on the 101 here, Susie.
So, Desmond, you mentioned that this started in South LA. Were the cars stolen in South LA first then?
We hadn't, heard about that, where exactly they were stolen, but they, and were they stolen earlier today, or were these just kind of in the system? It's just become such an epidemic with these stolen vehicles, and especially the Kias and the Hyundais, that it's been very, very well publicized, and all of the social media presence that goes on with this very loosely affiliated Kia boys that get on and they steal these cars usually just to go joyriding, and then put it on social media, and we've seen it a lot in Los Angeles as well. So we'll see how aggressive LAPD and now CHP want to be about this one. It's been a busy night for pursuits, and I'm just wondering if CHP is even going to be taking this, because sometimes when it's a stolen vehicle that starts on surface streets and they get a pursuit handed to them, they're not always super interested in getting this, if it's not like a violent known criminal or something like that. So we'll see here if LAPD is going to be sticking with this, if CHP wants to play ball with this. They had their helicopter overhead as well. They were having some trouble in downtown LA for sure, around all of the tall buildings, but they are still on the vehicle, and I'll just widen out and see if there's anyone right behind the car right now, but I'm not seeing anyone right behind it. They kind of drop back a little bit, so they're kind of going into tracking mode or something, or kind of reassessing here, but we'll see what the next move is going to be. Yeah, confirmed tracking mode now, Susie.
Okay, tracking mode, and they often go into this when they know that the driver is driving pretty erratically and could pose a danger to the public. They want to stop the pressure from chasing them from the back, obviously, and kind of draw those units back, as Desmond was talking about, so that this person can go. But they're still tracking it, as Desmond was talking about, with their choppers. So those ground units may not be visible right now, but be assured they are getting those cues from the helicopter and making sure that they are following closely behind somewhere in the area. But as Desmond was talking about, the CHP possibly going to get involved, possibly. It's unclear at this hour right now, but we do know that this all started with a stolen vehicle, 2 stolen vehicles, interestingly enough, 1 black Kia, 1 white Kia. There were suspects in both cars. As you see this car get off the freeway now, there were suspects in both cars. They actually ditched the white vehicle, as Desmond was talking about, and all jumped into the black vehicle. So we know that there are multiple occupants inside this car right now, getting really close to that car, making a left turn. Desmond, where are we now?
We are now getting into the heart of Hollywood, so on Hollywood Boulevard, but are we getting back on the freeway? Well, right in front of that bus. Just ridiculous right there. We're making a turn right here. It looks like we're going to be getting back on the freeway, southbound 101. So just got off right, basically just to reverse course here. A pretty dangerous maneuver there in front of that bus and going through that red light. And when they ditched the white Kia, that was just before we had gotten overhead. So I wish I could have seen, because I'm just the safe bet is on that these are pretty young people here. So I got to flip the camera around as they go right underneath us here. Just bear with me for one moment. But it's, so often with these Kias, that's what ends up happening. We had one a couple of months ago that was in South LA, and it was like 4 kids that I don't even know if they were high schoolers that got out of it. Like, we have heard stories about some of these stolen Kias being driven by kids as young as like 11 or 12 years old, which is just insane to think. And again, we don't have any indication of that in this instance, but there has just been so much with these Kias and Hyundais, and so often it ends up being very young people that are behind their alleged theft, and they take them for a joyride, they get out, a lot of times they crash them, and that's it. And a lot of times, because they're minors, they end up not being nearly as serious repercussions as could be if they were over the age of 18, and so that's kind of contributed to this whole phenomenon as well that's been going on for the last couple of years. As we head back southbound now on the 101, pretty light traffic this evening. Let's see what their tactic is going to be. But yeah, we know. Here's another thing, is that with these Kias, they do a lot of times tend to be groups. It's very seldom just one person. A lot of times it'll be like a group. So there could be quite a few people inside of this Kia Soul, which can comfortably seat 5. But then you've also got that cargo area in the back. And, if you've got people back there as well, that could be a pretty, dangerous situation if they're not wearing their safety belts. But you saw LAPD there. Yeah. They are in the process of handing this one off to CHP. And so we may start to see them move in shortly.
Yeah, and when you see that
getting mixed minus TOC.
Well, when we see that exchange happening between the LAPD and the CHP likes to have one big package. They like to have their own chopper in the air, or whatever the airship might be. They like to have their own units on the ground. They like to have their own radio communications. So as soon as they take over, the CHP will be handling this pursuit. So right now, as you saw, Desmond talking about those LAPD units that you saw in your shot, them just flying past those units. The LAPD about to relinquish this to the CHP, and the CHP will take over from here. But at this point, no ground units to speak of on the ground. We do believe that the LAPD went into tracking mode, as we were talking about, where they're following still, but from a great distance, as you saw there, although the chopper is still in the air. And Desmond, you were talking about the chopper. This is LAPD's chopper still?
Yes, it is, and they're probably going to have to stay on this for some time, because if they are going to hand this off to CHP, CHP is going to have to scramble their aircraft from Fullerton. So that's, although we are heading southbound towards Fullerton, it's going to take them some time to catch up here. So they're most likely going to leave their helicopter overhead until CHP can take over. And you do notice that there's no spotlight right now, as they've kind of gone into tracking, just trying to be a little bit more incognito at this point and not agitate the people, whoever's behind the wheel on this one. We have seen a couple of dangerous maneuvers, and, this is not a sports car, kind of a top-heavy little SUV that, if you jerk the wheel a little bit too hard, could definitely lose control fairly easily. Heading back through downtown now, through the heart of downtown, as we cross the 110. So, and this is already our second foray into downtown. We kind of caught this as it was leaving downtown on the northbound 110, then they went north 101, so now we're back southbound 101, as you can see, through Chinatown, and we'll see what they do if they're going to stick with the freeway here as we hit the Eastdale interchange. Next we'll have the eastbound 10. This lane will go to the east 10. The right lanes will go to the south 5 or the east 60, and so we'll see what the strategy is going to be with whoever is driving this vehicle.
All right, Desmond, thanks so much for that information. We are going to welcome our viewers on CBS Los Angeles in just a minute. But right now on KCAL News, you're still watching this breaking news, a wild pursuit of a stolen car. And Des, I heard you telling Susie earlier that this started as a 2-car pursuit?
Yes, that's right, Pat. This was initially 2 vehicles, a white Kia and a black Kia. Whoever was inside the white Kia got out and ran. And we heard LAPD. It sounded like they were trying to chase them down, but they were able to get inside of this vehicle. And our assignment desk letting us know that we've now confirmed that there are at least 3 people in the vehicle. So it's not clear if there was just 1 inside of the black vehicle and then 2 from the white car got in, or if there was 1 person in the white car and 2, and there could be more than 3. I mean, there could be 5, 6, even 7 people in this. I would not be at all surprised. When we're dealing with these stolen Kias, a lot of times it does end up being quite a few. As you see LAPD, they're getting in the shot, and they have their spotlight back on now that CHP is actively pursuing the vehicle. They got the handoff there from LAPD. They acquiesce. They are going to take this one over, and as long as it stays on the freeway, and then
All right, Desmond,
we'll
don't mean to interrupt you, but we are now joining KCAL News at 11 on CBS Los Angeles. We'd like to welcome our viewers on CBS Los Angeles at 11 o'clock on Channel 2, and we're also staying with this pursuit on KCAL 9. So as you were saying, boy, that CHP is pretty close behind this vehicle, Desmond, and we know you said LAPD has their chopper overhead as they're shining a spotlight on this black Kia with several, at least three people inside, which started as a two-car stolen pursuit, and they all ditched that white car and then got into this black car. They went northbound on the 101 about, I would say, 10 minutes to 11. That's when I started watching in this, and then all of a sudden turned around and went southbound on the 101, which is where we have them now.
That's correct, and we're actually making the transition now to the southbound 5. So we've gone through the East L interchange, southbound 101 dumps out onto the southbound 5. So, yeah, we just had a pursuit going, northbound 5 earlier, that crazy one where there had been a crash right kind of in this same area. So this is now like our third pursuit of the night. And the spotlight back on from LAPD now that this is back to being an active pursuit. LAPD had gone into tracking mode, hoping to hand it off to CHP. So this is all CHP now on the ground. LAPD in the air, but I believe they should be getting, I assume that we're going to hear from CHP's helicopters shortly coming out of Fullerton. And since we're now kind of headed down towards Fullerton pretty quickly, I might add, then, that should happen sooner rather than later. Or they may get their airplane overhead that has a really good kind of infrared system. We'll see. A little last-second cut right there. Almost worked, but nope, CHP,
right
they were very keen to it as we're now off of the roadway. Let's see if they come in with a pit or something. Ooh, looks like he kind of wanted to right there. I hadn't heard if the pit was authorized, but we know that all CHP officers are pit trained, and they all have those big push bars on the front as well. So they're certainly equipped and capable of doing a pit here if the sergeant is okay with it. So we'll just see how aggressive they want to get with this here. Off of the freeway, Boyle Heights area, off of Olympic. Are they getting ready to ditch the vehicle? Or are they just kind of driving aimlessly? I just, I really hope this isn't, what I suspect of like some really young people here in the car that could, be really endangering their young lives here. And our assignment desk now confirming that indeed they have authorized a pit. So that could be in the offing if they get the opportunity. Going way too fast for that right now, though. 60 miles an hour here along 8th Street in Lorena in Boyle Heights, kind of dancing all around the 5 freeway and the East LA interchange. We'll see if the suspect has any idea where they are or what they're planning to do here. And at least 3 people in the vehicle as some pretty high dangerous speeds here on surface streets of Boyle Heights, Pat.
Yeah, no question about that. I noticed you had talked about how light the traffic was on the freeways, but now we're on surface streets. Don't see a lot of traffic out there at this hour, but at the same time, with the rate of speed that this driver is going, that would make it more difficult for a pit maneuver. We see just avoiding one car there. I don't want to say that, well, no, they're going back up to the speed that they were in, Desmond. You wonder it's sometimes when they're slowing down, and when that officer was about to do a pit, I thought that the vehicle itself had started slowing down, maybe because they don't know exactly where they're going or they're trying to decide which way to go next. Okay, making a turn here, a sharp right turn on South Soto Street, running into a little more traffic. Desmond, are there many vehicles behind this driver, or just the one as we see it? Well, I see a couple now.
Yeah, there's a couple now, and we'll see if they're gonna. Well, now that we're getting back on the freeway, maybe they might stick with this. It looks like we're getting on the eastbound 60 right now. I just heard the sergeant say it sounded like he said he just wanted to get back to tracking with the helicopter now that they were on surface streets. But now that we're back on the freeway, they may re-engage. We know that's usually kind of the MO there of CHP. So back on the freeway here, it just seems kind of aimless here, the suspect, like they might be kind of panicked, like they're not sure what they're doing right now. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this right now. They're all over the place, zigging and zagging from the left to the right. Looks like they're going to make a cut here for, I believe this will take us to the Whittier-Lorena exit here. Perhaps another opportunity for a pit maneuver if they want to come in. And let's see here what the next move is going to be as we on and off the freeways. We've been on quite a few of them so far. Oh, I think he's going to do it. Oh, he tried.
Oh,
There's
just
a
missed
little
it.
bit of an attempt. It was, yeah, just barely there. I think that the driver The suspect kind of accelerated there right at the last second to get away. There was a little bit of contact made. It probably got their attention. They've got to know that CHP is pretty serious about this. So let's see how they react to that maneuver.
You know, Desmond, do we know how this started again? I know you mentioned that there were 2 vehicles involved, both of them stolen, both Kias. Is that right?
That's correct. It was a white Kia and this black Kia Soul. And I think it just probably started the way a lot of them start, where, you know, LAPD, where they read the license plate there. They have those automatic license plate readers. And if the 2 vehicles were next to each other, or these are vehicles they've been looking for a bit, but they started with them, you know, lighting up the cars, and they were together, and they both took off together. And so they, you know, are definitely buddy. Everyone involved with the 2 vehicles, now down to 1. But Whittier Boulevard now definitely can be a busy street in the East LA area. A lot of, you know, commercial developments. I mean, it is pretty late, so hopefully not going to have anybody out here walking around right now or very much cross traffic. But I think the speed limit's like 30 on the street, 25 or 30, and here we are at freeway speeds.
Yeah.
And so now again, it's kind of this on and off again. Now that we're on surface streets, is CHP going to kind of back off again, see if it gets back on the freeway? Does LAPD want to take this back? These are the kind of things that can happen when we kind of transition from freeways to surface streets back to freeways and back again. But they still got the spotlight on this one, and we'll see
as
if they
far
get
as you
another
can tell,
opportunity
Desmond,
or pit maneuver or what.
CHP is still behind them, as far as you can tell?
Yeah, just widen out here briefly and see. Looks like they've kind of backed off again a little bit since we are back off of the roadway, and there's a unit right there. So, well, now we're getting back on the freeway, so maybe they're going to get more active about it again. There was kind of some crosstalk though about LAPD picking that back up since it was on surface streets, and it just gets kind of messy when we cross all these different jurisdictions, and then, you know, when CHP doesn't begin a pursuit. And then, you know, how long do they want to take it when it wasn't even theirs to begin with? And if it gets down on surface streets, a lot of times they, you know, don't seem to be as interested in it. But now we're back on the freeway, and there's a unit right behind them. So kind of just as quickly as, you know, we were off, we're back on again.
Okay, so now this is anybody's guess as to how far these young people want to take this, and if law enforcement can stop this before anything untoward happens. If that speedometer is right, that's those are pretty 100 miles per hour, if that's correct, Desmond?
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, that's even
well, kind of slowing down a little bit. Yeah, he was kind of pounding on that gas pedal a little bit and then slowing back down as we go back through the Eastdale interchange. So we're really just kind of touring, you know, all over LA now at this point. He might make a last second cut for the 10. Yep, he's going to actually head for the Santa Monica Freeway right here, these lanes to the far right. So this is going to take us back towards downtown if they're going to stick with it here. And there are a couple of units in this one. I'll ask Dylan if he's heard from CHP's helicopter yet at this point. They are on the way. Dylan, by awesome pilot Dylan, let me know they actually just took off from Fullerton. So, you know, sometimes they could be take a little bit of time to scramble their helicopter and get going, but they will come in here and eventually relieve LAPD's helicopter. LAPD's should have enough fuel in their helicopter to stick. In fact, there's actually 2 LAPD helicopters here right now, Dylan's telling me. So, and that was, I think, because we had those 2 cars earlier, and so there's got a couple of pair of eyes from the air as well as units on the ground on this one.
Okay, well, since we've been on the air here at 11 o'clock, we've just seen a lot of back and forth, as you mentioned, Desmond, going from freeway to freeway, northbound to southbound, and then from the southbound 101, they transition over to the 10. And still, well, we've seen them get on surface streets and then back on the freeway. They're now on the 10 going westbound. But very interesting, there really is no rhyme or reason or pattern as to what they're doing and where they could possibly end up. We just know that this started as 2 vehicles, 2 Kia Souls, both stolen. Then they ditched one car, the white car, and got into this black car. LAPD got involved, and they called in CHP because it was on the freeway. And then we've seen a lot of back and forth on and off the freeway, which Would you find this interesting, Desmond, that CHP is sticking with this, or could it be that they really want this to come to an end, so it'd be worth it to them to continue, as opposed to just?
Yeah, I mean, it seems so. In fact, I think I'm hearing them talking about permission to re-engage in this one. This is a fresh unit, I believe, that is behind. This is when they got back on the northbound 5. They're kind of in the Boyle Heights on the border of the East LA area. That was, a unit that was sitting right there by the side of the freeway and got engaged in this. So now they're asking if they're going to be re-engaging this. But definitely the dispatcher's relaying a lot of things over to LAPD right now. So LAPD will be ready to respond, when this finally does end, if it ends in their jurisdiction. So definitely a lot of coordination going on. So we've really kind of done almost a big loop now as we're headed back northbound 110, back into the heart of downtown LA. And we'll see if they're going to try any maneuvers in downtown again like they did earlier. And, this is really the time when the authorities want to stay pretty close on the ground, because this is one of those areas where the helicopter could be at a disadvantage as we're making the transition right here onto the right-hand shoulder to get around that person who was slowing down for CHP. And yeah, just kind of looping around, see where we end up here. But a couple of units, they are definitely in hot pursuit on this one. And because when we get around these tall buildings, it could just be, really complicated for the helicopter.
No question about that. And as you've run into
actually southbound 110.
To more traffic, and the fact that yes, this driver doesn't seem to want to stop anytime soon, and that always makes it for a more dangerous situation because they're picking up speed as they go. And Desmond, you had mentioned where you actually watched them trying to do a pit maneuver, and you believe they made some contact, right? But they decided to keep going. So the adrenaline is obviously still pumping with this person behind the wheel. As we see happens a lot of times, or oftentimes, we're just hoping that at some point that they decide to come to a stop before they or anyone else on the freeway gets hurt. But of course, looking at this, they may be just going as far as the gas will take them. Don't know at this point.
Most likely, it does seem kind of aimless now at this point. Not really a lot of logic or anything to the driving, as we're actually southbound 110, which is even worse news for us because anyone who watches these pursuits knows what happens when we are along the 110, headed through South LA and the LAX flight restrictions. We'll be able to transition along the freeway here. Of course, we're going to have these huge flyover ramps that are going to kind of obscure things here for a little bit as my pilot is communicating with the LAX tower, seeing if we can make this transition. So, no, actually, never mind, because they just cut at the very last second again and decided to get off the freeway at 43rd. So right there where the 110 gets off to Flower, and now we're making a westbound turn here, actually on Vernon Avenue. So we are definitely in South LA, and this is going to be, frankly, disadvantaged SkyCal. We will do our best to stay with this one here as we're now officially in the LAX airspace.
Okay, and what do you think, Desmond, that CHP stays with this, or does the LAPD pick this back up because it's on surface streets?
I would not be surprised if LAPD picks it back up with this one. Now that again, CHP just does not really like to chase very much on surface streets, and now getting even deeper into the airspace, making that southbound turn on Vermont. This is not the first time we've been on Vermont. I definitely heard them talking about Vermont earlier, and I believe it was 14th and Sanford where that white Kia was ditched, and then at least one person got out of the vehicle and got inside of this vehicle. And yep, I just heard them say 1022, which means cancel. They're canceling the ground units, and so now you still got the helicopter there overhead by LAPD, and they're going to try to scramble their units to get back involved. I wonder if we have a foot bail going on. Yeah, I think they're out and running. I hear them talking about they're out and running south. There you go, and look at this, Pat. They look pretty young to me. I was saying it earlier.
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
I'm not even sure if they're driving age. Not even sure if they're old enough to have a learner's permit. Those kids.
Wow.
We may be far away, but I could tell those were definitely some young folks right there. At least two of them that we saw going into the back. So, they outlasted CHP. And this is just what happens a lot of times. CHP didn't start this pursuit. It was a stolen vehicle. These were not violent suspects. These were not known felons, anything like that. And when we're talking about something on the more minor end of the crime spectrum, if CHP doesn't start something and it gets off on surface streets, a lot of times they just kind of trail off. And I don't know if these kids knew that or what, but they saw that there were no longer units behind them, that this is their home neighborhood or what. And they've got eyes on them from the air. And again, we have to kind of see this airspace to LAPD. I'll just put up the map overlay, though, and show you where we're talking about. So 49th and Kansas is near where, so it ended to the west, but that's where, or to the east, but that's where the spotlight is on right now. If they have them in the backyard, I can't tell, but sure looks like there's a lot of places for them to hide at the very least, Pat.
And you know what? Don't see any units there yet. From what we're looking at, the shot that we're seeing, Desmond, don't see any LAPD units there, which is unfortunate because that means certainly they can make some, headway. And what do you bet, Desmond, that one kid with the red sweatshirt takes that off? Because that's blaring.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's like
yeah,
blaring. That red sweatshirt. Oh, let me take this off.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're kind of sticking out like a sore thumb with that, and sometimes those suspects do this. So here comes one of the LAPD cruisers right here. It looks like, but we'll see. Now I hear them talking. It sounds like they have at least one of them. I'm not sure if it's that they're saying that they have a visual of them. So the tactical flight officer in one of those helicopters is going to try to guide this unit in, maybe to an alleyway or something to try to get him into position where maybe they can get these kids in custody. But all it takes, as we've seen so many times, is just a couple of minutes. Is all that a lot of these suspects need. As you can see, the officers out here and running. They seem to be pretty confident about this home on the corner of Kansas and 49th Street. Out with weapons drawn, looking at a little bit of a distance with to give space for LAX, of course, and remain safe. But down here in this neighborhood, we know there were at least 3. We only saw 2 of them from our vantage point running the same direction. And it's not clear which of the 3 LAPD has, but they seem to be pretty confident. Okay, 1 in custody now. Our assignment desk letting us know 1 of 3 now in custody. So looking for 2 more out here, and it's not clear if they have the driver, but obviously that's the one that they really want. In fact, the other kids, a very good possibility that because they were not driving, they're probably not going to get reprimanded too hard with this one. But we did have that situation with that white Kia as well. So one of them, could have allegedly been driving that. So maybe I'll take that back. But they definitely want to get all 3 of them in custody, and ask definitely a stern line of questioning at the very least.
Yeah, that's certainly. And wonder if they're underage, where your parents are. Do they even know that you're out stealing cars? And not only that, but causing such a disruption. I mean, they were over several freeways, so they were young, but I'm going to give them that. They could. They did some pretty serious driving, Desmond. One to get away from CHP, but CHP, as you said, oftentimes they will look at something like this and say, well, it's not really worth it, because that could have anything could have happened on the freeway in terms of endangering the traffic if these guys got even more amped up than they already were. So here we are, ends up on surface streets, foot bail, have 1 in custody. And you had mentioned, too, we have seen this over and over in terms of these younger people stealing these Kia Souls and just going out for joyrides, if you will, or whatever that they do with them. But it's something that we have seen pretty often.
Yeah, we definitely have, and you're right, Pat. It does seem like it's been the Kia Soul specifically that we've been seeing with the quote-unquote Kia boys. And I mean, I'm just going to say that because we could tell it was a pretty young person with a Kia. You can kind of put 2 and 2 together on that. It's pretty much always the case these days, and you wonder how much longer this phenomenon can go on, or if they can change the technology to make it harder to do this. I mean, it's been so well publicized. There's you know, social media videos that have been posted on all sorts of different outlets, like showing how to do it. Apparently, it's a very easy to do thing, and it doesn't require any fancy tools or anything like that. And it's kind of like a big underground community, and it's been going on for a few years. And frankly, it's shocking that it continues, and that, you know, the car companies haven't found a good long-term solution to this, or what have you. I mean, maybe we need to start bringing the club back. Remember the club back when I was a kid, the very popular anti-theft device.
That's
I mean, maybe,
right.
I'm not sure, other than like a physical lockout thing. I mean, maybe we need to bring the club back.
Well, that's an interesting observation, and you're right. I certainly remember that too, Desmond. And you know, we can get into other things, but you also wonder how you can possibly stop these from happening. You know, they put it on social media, but do they put the perp walk on social media? Do they put them getting arrested, going behind bars, spending the night in jail? That may not be so much fun. That might be something to consider. Just talking out loud.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling that, you know, they don't post those because those videos may not get as many likes or as much clout as the joyriding part. But yeah, it's just frustrating all the way around. And like I said, they got at least one in custody. They're still talking and trying to lock down the area here to get the other two, and we'll see if they're able to get any of the other two. But you know, at least the crazy driving with the underage drivers is over, and it didn't end in a crash or something like that. And
right.
You just kind of worry when you think about someone that young with that, you know, little, supposedly that little driving experience. You know, you would think, like, just kind of nerve-wracking thinking about that out there. But, you know, at least there wasn't no innocent people were hurt in this.
Exactly. Okay, well, we're going to call Code 4 on this, Desmond.